Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video. Now last year I had the 890 Adventure from KTM for a couple of weeks and I was convinced, mate, that it's basically perfect. I mean, it's like that nice balance of chuckable and not too intimidating, but enough power and excitement to make it loads of fun. But I had one big sticking point. Can you guess?
Yeah, because it's probably the same one that I've got. It is fugly.
It's just not my cup of tea. Both of us prefer retros and more traditionally styled bikes, and that's definitely on the super modern end of the spectrum. But fortunately, this year, we've got the Norden 901 from Husqvarna, and it's effectively based on the same bike, just in a much more acceptable visual package for me.
Acceptable.
But does that make it the perfect adventure bike? They have made some little tweaks, so we'll go through all the major categories, give it a bit of a scoring, and by the end, we'll find out.
But before we get started, a massive thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. They've got an awesome range of male grooming products, like their Lawnmower 4.0 body hair trimmer, but also shower gels, shampoo and conditioner, lip balm, ball wipes, deodorant, body spray, all of which they've sent out to me to test, and I've been loving them. But new in and ideal for the gentleman biker, they've just released their Boxers 2.0. It's super important to be comfy and unrestricted when you're on the bike, and so their anti-chafe flat lock seams, the anti-roll waistband, and the breathable perforated jewel pouch all make them a rider's dream. Now you can either buy them individually or save with a pack of 3, and they've also been kind enough to give me a 20% discount code for my viewers, plus free international shipping, which you can find down in the description below. So once again, a massive thanks to Manscaped for supporting the channel.
Now Tim, I've done my research and looked into the Norden name. Do you know where it comes from?
No.
I think it's north in Swedish, not quite exactly translated, but that's the general idea. So I thought for each category, we could score it with thumbs Norden or thumbs...
Sudden? Sudden.
Yeah, one assumes Sudden or something like that. So the engine, is it adventure bike perfection? 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I thought so. It's such a lively parallel twin. It comes from the 890 Duke, so there's so much fun there, isn't there?
So we both ridden that before as well, and I had no complaints at the time, and it just suits this brilliantly as well.
You know, being a parallel twin, there's plenty of torque, which is exactly what you want with a versatile adventure bike. So you know, you can chug away in the low revs, but also it's fairly low inertia, so it spins up really quickly, plenty of power at the top, and they've given it such a lively throttle map that it just loves to pop the front wheel up in second. You know, no clutch, it'll just go. Yeah. Two other things I was thinking of as well, mate. Like, you want decent range on an adventure bike for sure, and with that fuel tank design hanging down either side, it definitely gives it that. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a super frugal engine, like a Himalayan or something. We were out both riding that yesterday.
That was so frugal. We moved 1 bar the whole day. That was it.
We did a whole day of riding and barely skimmed the top off the tank. This huge fuel tank, though, I don't think it's quite as big as the 890 Adventure because they've changed it visually. So I think you lose like a litre, but still the range is easily acceptable. I think you'll get a couple of 100 miles, no problem. Yeah. Over distance as well, I think it's really smooth. That's another thing with adventure bikes. You want to be able to do touring as well. And so at 70, you don't want lots of buzzing through the bars. No. This is surprisingly smooth for a twin, I think.
It's good. I think if you take it way up the rev range, you do get a little bit of a buzz to it. But when it's sat on the motorway at 70 miles an hour, it's not really straining too hard, so you don't get too much vibration.
And then also, most parallel twins, we're used to a 270 crank, but this is something like a 445 crank or like maybe 445 degree firing interval. But effectively, what it's trying to do is replicate the sound and feel of their bigger V-twins, which are a 75 degree V-twin. Right. And I think it does so. It doesn't sound quite as beefy as a Super Adventure or a Super Duke, but it's still pretty nice. In fact, do you want to start it up? Because then I'll stay here with this mic. People will hear it.
Hear me, and you're just going to get gassed out. This is a great plan.
Don't do it for too long. I'll hold my nose.
Okay.
Nice nice sounding bike though, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, yeah, no, I really like that. Again, that's something KTM does really well anyway. I say KTM, that's probably, is it a sin to say that when you're talking about
Well,
Husqvarna?
you know, it's KTM rudiments, isn't it?
So the family, but yeah, so there's something that they do as a whole very, very well.
All right, next up, handling. 3, 2, 1. I'd say it handles nicely as well.
Yeah.
The big thing for me is that fuel tank. We talk about the extra range that it gives it, but also I distinctly remember the first time I rode the 890, which is, I mean, they've been using this fuel tank design where it droops down either side for years, but it was my first time on one, and I just thought it was such a big difference versus like the Africa Twin or the Tiger 900, especially full of fuel, where they do feel top heavy, and also you've got less sloshing, they say. So when you do bank the bike over, if it's half full, you don't get the fuel moving from either side as much. So it really transforms it into such an accessible bike to ride.
Very
be
curious
that
to
on
try,
the road, or be that, you know, off-road where you really don't want it to feel
And that's
top
where
heavy.
I really want to try it, yeah, no, definitely, because I've heard from you, from other people as well, but from those that know, they do say about that about the KTM, and obviously this is slightly different in terms of where it holds its weight.
It's a little bit taller in the suspension than the KTM, and I think the visual redesign at the front end has lifted the weight a little bit higher, but still, you know, for the better looks, which we'll get onto in a bit, I think the compromise is worth it. And if you're comparing it against any other, you know, adventure bike with a traditional tank up top, it definitely feels markedly different. A few other things to check off on the sort of handling front. So Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR tyres. Those are decent, a little bit of like road and light off-road, so they should be a good all-rounder for this sort of bike. 18-inch rear wheel, 21-inch front. So obviously more off-road bias than your average bike, but I don't think it compromises too much on the road, does it?
Not at all. There's some bikes, I don't know that I've been on that many that I've noticed it, but obviously the bigger the wheel, generally it's sort of, sometimes it can make it feel a little bit vague. I know you were saying that about some other bikes. This definitely feels more like that KTM Husqvarna scalpel effect, where it is, even though it's got a big old front wheel on it, it's still quite nice and precise.
Lastly, on the handling, the brakes. They're branded Husqvarna, but I think they're the same J-Chuan brakes from the 890. So a 2-pot at the rear, a couple of 4-pot radially mounted calipers, is it? Yeah, at the front. And they do the job. I wouldn't say they're mega sharp. They're not like the most aggressive brakes, but then I guess it's a compromise. If you do want to off-road it, you might not want the most grabby, sporty feel to it. You know, the only thing I will say on the handling is because it's taller than the 890, it definitely is like more on that slightly highly sprung off-road bias feel. It's not going to feel like an 890 Duke or something like that, but I think most people are buying it, are coming into it knowing that, and so it's whether the handling meets expectations and or falls short, and I certainly think it's met mine. Number 3, comfort levels. Pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming off well.
I would say you're a little bit taller than me though, and I think if you're a shorter rider, it's going to be, you know, go the 890 Adventure probably. Because I think it's 850 in the low set and 870 in the high, so you know, it's still pretty tall.
It's also quite a wide seat, so that always ends up spreading your legs, pushing your legs out a little bit further, which makes it feel a little bit taller. So there's that to consider.
I always think of Husqvarnas as quite taut bikes. So when I picked this up, I was like, ooh, quite spongy, quite soft, quite wide. And then riding it, it's a nice cushy saddle, nice open riding position. And then the suspension is, I mean, it's adjustable, but it's pretty soft generally, I would say. And so that the general feel is sort of like on the road anyway, riding on a bit of a cloud. How did you get on with the wind protection? It's a bit sort of halfway, isn't it? It's not a full screen, that.
Yeah, I mean, so for me and you, Africa Twin, another good example, we really like the low screen on that one. I think I can safely say. The reason being, I do like having a screen there, but I think the taller screens generally just direct the air into the wrong place for me. The compromise for me is always, it's going to be noisy regardless, so just bring earplugs, but that doesn't project it quite as
it's not too aggressive. It's not adjustable. I'm sure there are accessories as well where you can go taller, maybe shorter as well, so that might be something to look into. And then I'd say generally the rest of it is really good because of the huge fuel tank. There's so many benefits. Range, balance, and then also, it keeps a bit of the wind off your shins and your feet and, you know, up here on your thighs, and I guess I could just say your legs, your entire legs. The handguards as well are really good. I found them to do their job in terms of wind chill as well. So all in all, super comfy. It just comes down to preference, I think, on the screen. And also they're pretty good for seat options as well on the KTM and Husqvarna accessories catalogue. So they'll usually be heated an ergo seat, which is a bit more cushy. Sometimes a bench seat as well that's like more like a rally style seat for off-roading. So I'm sure most people can find a setup that suits them. Tech-wise, oh, see,
It's getting unsurprising now, isn't it?
it is getting unsurprising.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? It's got everything, or it can have everything. There's optional extras.
So right, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I suppose that the more feature laden it gets, you do run the risk of it getting perhaps a little bit overcomplicated. I've been finding in street mode with the lively throttle map and then the regular sort of you know, rider aid interventions. For most situations, even if it's a bit damp, that's the most fun for me and perfectly adequate. Now, the menu layouts are pretty much the same in terms of like the sequence of them as the KTM. So a lot of history there in designing that, and it's fairly logical. It's one of my favorite actually to navigate. But what I like about this is they've just given it a slightly different skin to suit the Husqvarna style. Yeah. And it actually looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it matches really well.
So yeah, with cruise control, good TFT dash, phone integration, heated grips, quick shifter. Quick shifter works really well.
Genuinely one of the most, like notably one of the best that I've tried.
And so yeah, there's not much you'd be left wanting. I mean, maybe like the bigger bikes you get adaptive cruise control and stuff like that. But I think this for me is like the sweet spot of good tech, not too much, not too expensive. Yeah. Anyway, the big one to vote on, styling and finish. 3, 2, 1. I've got an angle. No, it's not. No, give me that. I've got a slight angle.
I was taking the piss with this one. What's that?
No, it's on a 45-degree angle because look, the looks are incredible for me. I think they've done a really good job of bringing the original spirit of the concept to life, given the constraints of what you need a road bike to look like. Yeah. It also embodies the sort of Husqvarna style and brand, and you know, there's some continuity with the Svartpillen and Vitpillen. Yeah. It's just the finish. It's just at the back end here. Like,
oh, I see. Yeah, you did mention
there
it before.
There were 2 things here I noticed. So the Husqvarna logo on the exhaust is already coming off. Yeah. And it's got a couple of thousand miles on it. But also that Norden 901 sticker there at the back. It's not under any lacquer or anything. It's started to peel off at the edge. Yeah. And it just feels like the care and attention that's gone into the front end there isn't quite there at the back. I just feel like it's not a cheap bike, so I'd want it to be
no,
perfection.
You want it to reflect the price that you pay for it.
So you'd say
ride it hard?
This 3/4 is harsh?
Based on a sticker, I'd say it was a harsh angle to have your thumb out.
All right, save your thumbs Norden or Suden or whatever for the end of this section because it's price, and I think you need a little bit of context before you can actually truly vote. I've had to get my phone out to get the old price lists up, but it's 12,349 for this bike, which, I mean, on the face of it, sounds pretty reasonable, doesn't it? For the 890 Adventure, it's 11,449, so that makes the Norden about 900 quid, I think, more. I'm not sure you're getting a great deal more functionality, a little bit more in the suspension and stuff perhaps, but doesn't sound too bad. What's interesting is the 890 Adventure R, which is the very aggressive, off-road biased, really tall bike as well. That's 12,499, so only 150 quid more than this bike. Yeah. And then into the competition, you've got something like the Tiger 900 Rally, which is very similar in terms of, specs and features. Yeah. That's 12,100, so slightly cheaper, but only by 250 quid. The Rally Pro, so the more off-road biased, but fully featured in terms of like crash bars, heated seats, and peripheral lights and all that, that's 13.5 grand. But I think the closest competition has to be the new Desert X from Ducati. It's got, really similar features again, but also that semi-retro, semi-modern aesthetic, which makes both these bikes, quite appealing. That one though, despite the fact that it's been getting great reviews so far, and I'm sure we're both keen to try it out. Yeah, definitely. It comes in at just over 14 grand, so that is a big difference. Yeah,
it is, but then that's the Ducati tax.
Anyway, price-wise, go.
Like that kind of angle?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair, so what's your beef?
I actually think it's probably worth its money. It's in the same sort of ballpark. When we're talking about like a couple of 100 quid difference between certain bikes, that's negligible to a certain degree, especially when you get into this sort of price point, right?
Totally.
But I think it's the KTM that really throws me off because you get a very similar bike for slightly less money if you want to go for just the adventure bike, or if you go for the R, not that much more.
Really, I'll take your point.
Right, and how much do you pay for something that just looks slightly better? And I say that, and I'm going to contradict myself massively and say that I would still go for the prettier bike, but it does kind of stick a little bit.
It depends whether you're utilitarian, in which case go for one of the 890s, or if you're a poser like Tim.
Clearly, yeah.
And then you'll have to go for this one. For me, I'd say it's very close. If I was buying a brand new adventure bike and I had that sort of money, you know, I've got a Tiger 800, so Tiger 900 looks quite tempting to me, but after spending a couple of weeks with this, I think it's now top of my personal adventure bike tree. Anyway, thank you, Tim, for joining us today. And as always, I'd love to know what you guys think of it down in the comments below. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.